Alright, in this video, we will add explosions to make our game better. So to do that, let's go ahead and add the explosion, make it a sprite object. And if we look here, it requires a lot of images. So to select all of that at once, instead of clicking, let's click the first one, scroll down, hold Shift, and click the last one. That will select everything. Let's go ahead and change the time to 0.01, and we do not want to loop. Let's name our object explosion, all lowercase. Apply. Now, when do we want this explosion thing to appear? We want this explosion to appear when two things. If our bullets hit the enemy tank, or the tank hits our turret. So let's add a new event, and the condition is a collision. Between what? Let's do bullet and enemy. So if the bullet collides with enemy, what do we want to do? We want to create the explosion. Now, at what position do we want to create the explosion? Well, wherever the enemy used to be. So enemy is the name of the enemy, and .x with the parentheses. That will give us the x value of that specific enemy object. Okay. Now, after we create the explosion, we're going to delete both the enemy, and the bullet. Now, let's go ahead and play. Let's try things out. Oh, wow, why are they exploding not where the tanks are? Right, it's like to the bottom right, the explosion's happening. And this has to do with the explosion sprite. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that. Two problems. Explosion objects are not created exactly in the position of the enemy. Second, the created explosion object remains in the scene. So let's solve this problem. The explosion objects remaining in the scene. After the explosion animation finishes, and that is after this all finishes, we want to delete the object. So how do we do that? Well, we can use when an animation is finished. That's a condition. So let's look for animation and images. Sprite, animation images, animations finished. If the explosion animation is finished, what do we want to do? We want to delete the explosion object. Go ahead and preview. Ta-da! So it disappears after it's done. I do like the charred earth effect though, that the other one had. Alright, let's go to the next one. We need to understand the cause. When we create the explosion object, we use the expression enemy.x and enemy.y. Remember, this .y and .x refers to the origin point of the enemy object. If we look at the object, the origin is in the top left of the enemy. We're also creating the explosions from their origin point, which is at the top left corner of the explosion object. Let's look at that. So it's up here. To solve this, we're going to change the position of the origin point of the explosion. We're going to change this point from the top left. We're going to make it into the center. So 120. 120 is what they tell us to do. And notice that it's directly in the center now. So we're going to create this explosion at the center, not from this origin point of the explosion, but from the center, which is now the origin of the explosion, because we've changed that point. Let's apply. Now, where are we going to create this explosion? We're not going to create it in the top left of the tank, which is the .x and .y, because that gives us the origin of the tank. We're going to create it at the center point of the enemy tank. So how do we do that? Well, we want to create the object explosion not at the origin, but at a different point. What point? The center point. Okay. Same thing for y. Point y center. There we go. Let's go ahead and run. Bam. Pretty realistic explosions. One more. All right. Save. So in the next video, we'll do a game over and we'll pretty much finish up the rest of the game.